Hello, my name is Laura Hattersley and this is episode 13 of the Cure CASK podcast. And today we're going to start with France, where they had a grant out and they finally made the decision of who they're going to fund. And this is pretty exciting. So the French CASK organisation have decided to fund a study entitled The Clinical Phenotype and Natural History of Patients with a CASK gene variant. And that's going to be led by a Dr. Berglund and a Professor Auvin from Paris. And within that, they're also going to be studying epilepsy, which is going to be led by Professor Auvin because they are the national specialist of rare epilepsies. So what AECF has actually managed to do is to get 2 projects for the price of 1, which I absolutely love that kind of thing. So so one's going to be, so it's going to be a natural history study, but within that they're going to look in depth into epilepsy within the French and possibly European population of with people with CASK mutations. So that is something that is currently missing from our global roadmap. So that's amazing. That's going to be another tick, because to get diseases to get drugs licensed, you need to obviously understand the population really well. So although we have our registries, which are another part of that, actually having a singular study looking at the natural history of a particular population, a regional population, is really, really important and essential. So that's amazing. That will be, I'm not sure how long that study is going to be, but obviously we won't get results for at least a year. And also they've managed to be able to fund another study with all the funds that the French community have raised. And although they didn't have enough to fund the entire study, they're managing to fund task 1, and this project is entitled Assessing the Involvement of CASK in Neurodevelopmental Disorders through a Quantitative Interactomic Approach. And this is by a Dr. Monselier, and this particular doctor, I don't believe has studied CASK before, but is really, really excited about this opportunity, and is really grateful that they get to study CASK. And what she is hoping to do, or what she will be doing, is she will be applying for another grant to fund the second part of her study, which is going to be looking at variants of unknown significance. So if you're not sure what that means, you might see written down, you might even have it on your genetic reports, maybe not for the CASK gene, maybe if another mutation was found, it would say VUS potentially. And what that means is there is a mutation in the genome on a particular gene, but they're not, or maybe like within a gene, but they're not, the doctors don't know if it is pathogenic, so if it is disease causing. So if they don't know for certain that that change in the DNA is the reason for the symptoms that are being presented, then it would be called a variant of unknown significance. So we don't know how many people there are with variants of unknown significance within the CASK gene, and possibly maybe these are disease causing. So this is really interesting. So obviously we really hope that Dr. Monselier manages to get the rest of this funding, but it's absolutely fantastic that the French organisation is able to fund the first part and get this rolling. And as we've spoken before, I think in the past, we call it seed funding. It's that first initial amount of money that is needed to then get projects running, and then they can apply for other funding. But quite often, or nearly all the time, from large national funding bodies, they require this preliminary data, and they require that particular PI or that particular lab to have experience in that particular disease. And obviously with CASK, that's really difficult because not many researchers have studied CASK. So you need to obviously get their interest and then give them that initial seed funding to enable them to start studying CASK, and then they can apply for larger grants, which then takes the burden off our community. So that's what we're hoping for with, well, to be honest, with everything we fund. We don't have the millions of dollars, millions of pounds, millions of euros to fund everything fully. So this is what we are all trying to do, just kind of with like the spark to then start everything rolling, hopefully. Other things in France, everybody's been very busy. I'm going to try and keep this to 10 minutes, but I'm not sure. So Claire, who is the Secretary, and Magali, who is the Treasurer, they attended the annual National Congress of the French Rare Disease Alliance in June. And that is to kind of keep abreast of the latest news of the Rare Disease Alliance. And it was the 25th anniversary of the French Alliance this year. And the members even got to see the labs of the AFM Telethon, which is like a main funding body for rare disease. And I guess like my favourite bit of the news is that we had visitors last weekend. We had Thierry, who is the director and founder of AECF, come and stay with us. And they travelled all the way from Brest in France, which if you don't know where that is, it's like right out on a limb. And it's at the opposite end of the country, well, kind of the opposite side of the country to where I live. And they came to stay. They only had one night because it did take so long for them to travel. But I got to meet Thierry, who obviously I talk a lot to, but I'd never actually met in person. And we got to meet the beautiful Enora, who is so cute, who obviously has a CASK mutation, and my daughter Sarah got to meet Enora, and they got to see each other, and it was just absolutely beautiful. And the two siblings got to meet each other, and obviously the spouses as well. So it was really, really amazing, and I would really recommend meeting up with other families going through the same journey as we are, because there's often a connection, and it's just seeing the children. And I think like one of my favourite things about the weekend was that Sarah, who so often gets ignored because people don't know how to react with her and interact with her, she was not ignored. She had the best weekend. She was in the best mood because Thierry and his family, they knew what to do with her, and they were really interested in her, and obviously we were really interested in Nora, and we kind of knew the kind of thing she would like as well. And so just being around another family with a child of similar abilities, people just know what to do, and aren't phased by things happening, having to do nappy changes and vomits and things like that, and feeding tubes. It's just really, really nice. So anyway, so that's the news from France. So, and in Australia, Giovi has been really busy. So she attended the second Rare Disease Disability Network meeting, which is like a really important initiative led by Rare Voices Australia, and it unites leaders and advocates working to strengthen, support and build capacity across the rare disease sector in Australia. And Giovi also took part in a workshop by the Neurological Alliance Australia, and contributed to developing the Australia's first national action plan for neurological conditions, and that's very important. We have the equivalent over here in the UK. Thank you to Giovi for kind of making sure rare disease is being heard in Australia and CASK is being known about in Australia. And she also has a really important update about their iPSC study, so keep listening. The Queensland lab currently has 2 CASK patient-derived cell lines in the process of being made into iPSCs. So that's when they're like converted back into their embryonic state, and then they can be turned into different types of cell types. That's going to be completed hopefully in July. Once that step is finalised, the next step will be generating these brain organoids. The press like to call them mini brains, but they're not quite that, from these cell lines. And those mini brains and the organoids will enable us to understand the different mutations better, and can also be used as like a tool to test drugs on. So our other scientists within the CASK Coalition who are looking at therapeutic approaches, so different drugs and even the gene therapies, having this brain organoid is going to be another tool that we can check safety, efficacy, that kind of thing on. So it's like a really, really important part of the tool, and grateful that the Australian Foundation have managed to fund this and and initiate it basically. So they're also preparing for a grant application, which will support further cell line developments and more research. So this is important. As part of this, families, including those from the international CASK community, so not just Australia, because obviously the Australian community is really small, but the international CASK community, you can nominate your child to be considered for inclusion in this grant. And what that means is you can give your child's mutation and so give your child cells so that those cells can be reprogrammed into iPSCs and be used for future research. But what that means is that your child's actual mutation will be being used. And that could be really important. For example, if your child has like a missense mutation, that's really unique to them. Most of our children's mutations are unique to them, to be honest. So I would highly recommend being part of this grant process. And by being part of it, the costs of the child cell lines being developed will be covered if they're successful. And also the process of the blood, you've got to give blood, the blood draw or the cord blood or whatever blood they take. So it won't cost you any money. I believe what you need to do is you need to email Giovi, which is admin@acrnf.com, if you would like your child's mutation to be nominated for research. So this is just so Giovi can say, we have 5, 10, 15, whatever, 20 families. These are the mutations. Obviously, it'll all be confidential in her grant application. And then if it's successful, those people that have taken part in that grant application by saying yes, you can take my child's blood, you will then get to have that done and it won't cost you any money. So if you are interested in having your child's mutation involved in research, then please get in touch with Giovi. It's a win-win really. If she's not successful, then you don't have to do anything. If it is successful, then you don't have to pay anything and you find out more about how your child's mutation works. Yeah, how it works basically. So sorry, this is a bit, I'm not going to talk about UK today because I am running over. So last little bit of news is from the US. So Tara, who was the director of ACRNF USA, had her annual fundraiser in New York and raised an amazing $53,000 in one night. So she has like a gala with music and dancing. That is absolutely incredible. I think she's really, really pleased with that amount. For this project, so just a reminder, all the money goes to the Cure CASK project, which is funding the innovative gene therapy to reactivate the healthy CASK gene that is found in all our girls. So it isn't gene replacement, it's a different type, but it's basically just unlocking something that is already there within all the female population and enabling all the cells to be able to produce CASK protein. That's the theory. Anyway, so all the funds will go towards that, and they have just started funding Jill, which is phase 2. So the whole CASK coalition funded phase 1, which was Kyle creating Dr. Fink, creating the cell line, so the iPSCs, to work out actually how to reactivate the CASK gene. But then obviously we need to try it in mouse models. And so this second part is being fully funded solely by ACRNF USA, supported but not funded by the members of the CASK coalition. And they have given Jill, who is the mouse lady, the first amount of funds, but she needs, for it to be completed, she needs all of the money, obviously. So that is why Tara and her team are busy fundraising, but they still require another $40,000. So particularly if you are in the US, but if you are anywhere, can you please consider supporting Tara and supporting ACRNF in trying to make sure that Jill gets all her funding, because a lot of the effort has just been left on the shoulders of the directors for this particular project. But this is amazing. Like, this should be being supported, not necessarily financially, but just being talked about and supported by everybody really, because this is a really good opportunity. for what we call a curative treatment, which wouldn't necessarily be a cure, but as close to a cure as you can get with this particular disorder. So I think ACRNF USA are asking for more help, especially from the US community, more fundraisers, more support. Anyway, that was a lot of news. There is stuff happening in the UK, but people have probably stopped listening by now. So I will see you next week, and thanks for listening.